Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today an incredibly special guest. We are launching a brand new book. The book is called Aggressive Optimism. Now, if you are looking for an inspiring story, a coming of age tale of a young woman who is just overcoming all the odds, something that goes deep, a good read that goes into mental health, the importance of solidarity, the power of perseverance, and an incredibly inspiring young person, then you're going to want to hang tight and listen to this discussion of aggressive optimism. And I have the author here with us. Now, this author believes in the power of optimism and the idea that there are a million ways to do anything. This author is a two-time international best-selling author. She owns a media company that focuses on sharing uplifting stories of triumph, optimism, and the human spirit. And she is living out her dreams in LA, and she's an award-winning film producer and actor. I am so honored to have you here with us, Miss Jenna Edwards. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh. It's so weird to hear your bio read out loud and then you're like, and now I have to talk and
Well, I
live up to everything you just said.
Well, I mean, this is not your first rodeo with
No.
storytelling. And you are bringing to us just this absolutely incredible story of this young woman, Jennifer, who her nickname is Niff. Can you introduce us a little bit to Niff and what's going on in her life when we meet her at the beginning of Aggressive?
Yes, I can. Nif is a small town girl with big, big dreams. I feel like she was born in the wrong place. Um, she should have been born in Los Angeles, which is her dream. She wants to move there to be a singer. And when we meet her in the story, she is just performed her debut solo in the choir. And she worked really hard to hit this really difficult note. And she did it, and everybody applauded. And it was like, this huge moment for her where her dreams felt like they were coming true. She meets this reporter who wants to feature her on a TV show, and she's just over the moon. Like everything is happening. Everything she's dreamed about since she was a little kid is coming to fruition. And she's been working really hard her whole life. I mean, she's a high school senior, so she's young, but she works really hard to get to this place. And unfortunately, then it takes a turn, and she is involved in a really horrific car crash that basically takes her voice away. She's unable to speak. She clearly can't sing. She's having flashbacks and panic attacks and hyperventilating, so her vocal cords get all wacky. And so the story then takes you through her healing journey and the support of professionals and friends, and it deals with topics of post-traumatic stress disorder and mental health and taking care of yourself and figuring out how, we see her go on this journey of finding her voice again, figuring out how she can get through this huge trauma and heal. And then at the end of the book, I'm going to leave it alone because I don't want to spoil it, but it's a very satisfying read.
I love the storyline, and we'll get a little bit into the inspiration of the storyline here in just a bit, but I love that you really bring us to what you start us off what most people would think is like the end, right? The happy ending. It's like everything is going right. And then it's suddenly taken away through really no fault of her own, right? And how many of us feel like we have that moment where, okay, I've worked so hard, things are going well, and then suddenly, like, snap, everything changes instantly. And maybe we made a bad decision, maybe we didn't, maybe just bad things happened. And we really there's all the pithy sayings out there about, it's all about how you respond and pick yourself back up and keep going. But you know what? It's really hard. It's really hard to do that.
Absolutely.
And to
Yeah.
be able to walk with a young woman in the pages of a novel as she's going through this can offer us such a self-reflective moment, both on our own journeys, but maybe even to be empathetic toward other people who might be going through something similar. Can you tell us a little bit, Jenna, about like why did you feel like this was the story you wanted to write? And I know that it's also based on your own life.
Yes. So that question is definitely multifaceted. And I love that you brought up being able to empathize with others because the whole project started 20 years ago when I was basically I just been on the final episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was like the biggest show in the world at the time. And I was a huge fan myself. So being able to be on that, like my dream had always been to move to Los Angeles and become an actor. And I was finally doing it. Like we had just had the watch party at my house like a month before, and I thought my dreams were coming true. And so I was very much in the position that Nif is in the story, and then I was involved in this horrific crash in Santa Monica, California, where this elderly man drove through the farmer's market. He killed 10 people and injured over 60 of us. And the man standing right next to me did not make it. So I was super close to death. And I experienced all the things that Nif goes through in the book. And at the time, it was the early 2000s, and post traumatic stress disorder was a diagnosis mainly given to military. And so I had all of these validation issues where I thought my experience wasn't valid enough to have this like huge mental crisis. I was having flashbacks and panic attacks and hyperventilating. I couldn't read. I stuttered when I talked. I would forget basic words. And nobody around me really understood what was going on. And I wasn't in a place where I could explain it because I didn't understand it, right? Like you have to get through it in order to like actually have the terminology to have conversations with people. And so that was a big reason that I wrote the book as a novel, first of all, because I feel like these conversations are so important for our young people to be able to have. And like there's just not that life experience in a lot of them where they can find the words to express like right now this is what's happening with my mind, or this is what's happening with my body, and I need to do xyz in order to make it better. And so one of my biggest goals with writing the book was to share this story in a way that people who haven't experienced any kind of mental health issues or crisis could understand what someone was going through in case a loved one was going through it, and then to give a voice in writing to some of these younger people or even adults who haven't had the like communication training that I've had. I mean, as an actor, I obviously know how to communicate different emotions and feelings and things. That's all training. And that's not normal training, right? Like that's not the average everyday person's training. So I felt like it was really important to make it a fictional story so that people could relate a little bit more, but then tell the true emotional story and true emotional journey that I went through so that people could understand what it really is like to basically have a mental breakdown. I mean, I make jokes all the time because I really wish the word crazy was less taboo, but I legit went crazy. I didn't sleep for 8 months and I ended up in the psych ward. Yeah, because I was in such denial because I didn't understand what was happening, right? And once I got into the hospital and I was around professionals who could explain things to me, the emotion was taken away and I was able to look at it more logically. And now I compare like what happened to me with PTSD is similar to a broken bone, right?
Mhm.
But because we can see the break in the bone, we're more apt to identify it and acknowledge it and then set it and let it heal. But when your mind breaks, it's this like illusion type situation. And so you have to be really logical about it and be like, you know what? I'm not okay right now. And that is fine. Like, there's no emotion attached to not being okay if you want to heal. Like, you have to then take the steps necessary to get to a different place. But it's possible. And that's what the book is about. It's like that possibility, you know?
So, I mean, it's right in the title, aggressive optimism. I love that you begin like from the very beginning. The book is this gorgeous yellow color, and you can see the back of this
I
young
have it.
girl. I mean, I just love this cover so much, and it already tells us like it's going to be tough, but it's going to be okay. I think that that's something that your book is really bringing to the conversation of mental health, especially around young people. Like I think about when, we were growing up, I think about the movie like Girl Interrupted, which was very like dark. It's like,
Yes.
yes, we're talking about mental health, but it's like full of, pain and angst.
Thanks.
We might never actually, come to a way of being okay again. But aggressive optimism invites us into this conversation in such a way that's like, yes, it's going to be tough and it's going to be okay. Can you give us a little bit of insight
Yes.
into, NIF or your own journey or the blurred combination of, like
Absolutely.
what are some of the things or people that NIF is going to encounter along the way that's like helps her to find her way forward in a new life?
I love it. And I love that you used Girl Interrupted because I don't know if you know this, but that's literally the tagline is a unique yet relatable coming of age story, fusing the emotional resonance of Girl Interrupted with the empowering essence of Legally Blonde. So it's very like, how do you put these two things together? And I think it's so important, right? Because as humans, and Nif is a perfect example, I think, of this, where she's going through something super dark, but her like legally blonde energy is still there because that's who she is. She's a very optimistic character by nature. She is super goal driven. She has these dreams that she will not let anything get in her way. And so, like, PTSD is one of those things that is just this huge flipping roadblock for her. And she's like, okay, this is the biggest roadblock I've ever had, but clearly I need to get better so that I can like pursue my dreams because that's who I am. And so through her journey, she meets so many cool people. I just can't even explain it. Her two best friends are Karsten and Zane, and they're hilarious. They're based on two of my best friends. So I adore them. And I have to tell you, as a writer, of course, there's always going to be this moment where the editor is like, you have to cut this scene, right? And I was like, it was all the intro to Karsten and Zane got cut because we needed to get to the inciting incident faster. And I was like, I get it, but I'm also so sad. So Karsten and Zane are like the best, and they're her rocks. She lives in this town that she doesn't feel like she belongs in, and she's always struggled with like being an outsider and not having a place in the world. And they're two people who like were born into that town, their families are there, so that's like their life, and there's still these just like beacons of hope for Nif throughout the whole thing. And Zane is actually the one who introduces the concept of aggressive optimism, which, in my opinion, for everybody who wants to know, is like the opposite of toxic positivity, where, like, I don't know if you've heard the term toxic positivity before, but it's very prevalent in social media right now. Like, just smile through, or like, oh, you're either sad or you're happy. Like, there's no gray anymore, right? And so my like come back to that is aggressive optimism, where I'm like, optimism is almost like it's an act of rebellion, right? So in this world of like horror, sometimes you're like, yeah, and it's not but, right? It's always and. Yes, this is a horrible situation, and there's this other thing over here that I want to focus on. And so that's kind of the whole theme in the book is like acknowledging that she's really broken, Like there's just no getting around it. You can't walk around on a broken leg for long, you know, without getting the help that you need. And so she then gets introduced to the world of mental health professionals and other patients who are in the psych ward, who really open up her eyes to just different perspectives on it and different tools. She's given a lot of different tools by a lot of different people that I think the reader is going to really love and hopefully like take in and use in their own lives. Um, and so, you know, and then she, of course, has to fight with the school because she wants to talk about mental health and that's a taboo thing. And so there's this like, she triumphs over that kind of adversity as well. So I feel like it's got something for everybody. I really do. I think it's got really great side characters that are going to teach some fun, some serious lessons in a fun way. And then also just Nif, you know, overcoming her own internal battles as well as her external battles, and in a really inspiring and uplifting way. Like I'm a cheesy movie maker. Like I love me a good formulaic, legally blonde type movie. So that's really what I set out to do with the writing of the book, was like, if you were going to see this as a movie, what would it look like? And then I put words around it.
Amazing. Well, if y'all are here, you're listening to us talk about this book and you're like, I want to read this book. The good news is that we're launching the book. We want to get it out to as many
Yay!
people as possible. And the ebook is on promotion right now. So you can go to paperravenbooks.com/aggressive optimism, all one word, or just click the link right next to this video, take you over to Amazon. You can grab the ebook on promotion right now, get it on your Kindle, load it up for this weekend. You can order a physical copy. You can get the audiobook, all the versions. But go
Yay!
ahead and grab the ebook while it's on promotion right now. If you know someone who might be interested in this book too, share this with them, tag them. I'm thinking like, you know, all my daughter's just now turning 14. I'm thinking
Oh,
about,
perfect.
you know, all the middle school, high school kids, like this is the type of coming of age story I want them to read, you know, not whatever they're being assigned in school. I want them to read this instead. Even like your people who maybe have been through something difficult and they want to feel that support, or you just want to know how to support them better. Like this is a really great read for, yes, we're going to fall in love with Nif and Zane and Kirsten and all the characters. And we're going to come out the other side different people too. So if that's the kind of read that you're looking for, go ahead and grab a copy right now. And I'm also curious, Jenna, like, what was your writing process like? Because I mean, you have a busy life, right? This was a project that you kind of were having to write in the margins of life, so to
Yes.
speak. It was also your own story that you were fictionalizing, you were imagining, you know, if I were going to create a TV or film out of this, what would the, you know, those beats be? So what was that writing process like for you?
Um, first of all, it's been 15 years in the making. Let me just put that out there for any aspiring writer. Like the thought of this book has been active in my mind for a really long time. For me personally, after the crash and after healing, I started sharing my story. And so people were encouraging me to write it as a nonfiction for a long time. And it didn't resonate with me because I am someone who believes that there are three sides to every story. And like there's some characters in there that are villainized because that's how you tell stories, right? And so like there's the main villain, if you will, is based on like five different characters, including my internal voice. And so her name is Jessa. And you know, I had experiences like that with other people, but more than that, I had experiences that I share in the book with my own internal thoughts, right? And so because I understand like the multifaceted thing, it didn't feel comfortable. And with PTSD, I don't know if I forgot things. I don't like my mind was not right, right? So I might be remembering things inaccurately, and I didn't want to put that out there as fact. And so for a long time, I was having this internal and external battle with advisors that I was working with who were like, you have to write it as a nonfiction. So I stopped for like 5 years. I was like, I'm not even thinking about this book anymore. But of course, when you do that, it's still in your head. And so the fictional version of it was something that was really tugging at my heartstrings, and so I decided to do it. And when I decided to do it, I had started speaking to high school students, and so that audience became so ingrained in my heart that I was like, I need to make it a YA. And then COVID hit, and my speaking stopped, and I got a corporate job, which is a very demanding job. And there's a lot of hoops because it's a really big, well known company. And my contract with them is like, you can only, like, if you don't get permission to write the thing, they could own it kind of situation, right? So when I approached you, we had that conversation and we talked about like, how can I do this in the margins, if you will? And so from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. every day, I wake up and I do my aggressive optimism work. And I'm very drawn to the business side of things. And I tried very hard to write every single day. You know how like a lot of authors are told, like, you have to be consistent, you have to be consistent, and it just didn't work for me. I'm like such an all or nothing person that like 6 months in, and I felt so bad for your team because I was like, this isn't working. How can we do it? But again, a million ways to do anything, right? And you have to take emotion out of it and focus on what the goal is. And the goal was to write this book. So I decided to rent a hotel room for 5 weekends in a row. And I just wrote for like 12 hours, 2 days straight, and back to back weekends. I had a really great outline. I used Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. I love that book. I love it. I can't even explain how much I love the Save the Cat formula. It, for me as a film producer, makes the most sense. So I had a really great outline. And then I just filled in the blanks with, you know, what I wanted to write. And I worked really hard with your team. They've been so amazing, by the way. I can't express enough how much I am so glad I signed up with you guys, like, and decided to work together. It's just been an incredible journey. But yeah, it was a very interesting process, right? Because I had to really kind of have some come to Jesus moments with myself where I was like, you don't work this way. Why are you trying so hard to be that perfect author? You know, like, you need to write the way that you need to write. And that was a huge, like, moment for me. I was like, you have to listen to the book. The book is literally telling you that you need to find the way that you work in the world, and you are fighting with yourself.
But I love that. I love
So,
that takeaway. If I could just highlight, you came in with this expectation in order to quote unquote be an author. I need to write every day because I've heard that's what authors do. You try to do
exactly.
that, I'm sure you set that alarm, you got up, you're in front of
Oh,
the computer, and it's just not coming. You
yeah,
had hired accountability, you had started working with a book coach, like you had an outline, you had all the things.
totally.
And yet, when it wasn't working, it's like, then we gotta find a different way, right? And that's
Exactly.
so important for anyone who wants to write a book or do any big creative project that's sort of on the margins. It's like, you know what? Listen to that intuitive voice. It's like, okay, how do you wanna do this? And a hotel room for 5 weekends in a row is amazing for people who love deadlines and like that adrenaline rush and that, like,
Yeah,
little undercurrent of urgency. It's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
get
How
it done.
am I tracking with how many words I need to be writing over these 5
Oh
weekends?
my gosh, totally. I had my little note like, okay, you did 2,000 words. Okay, you did 6,000. Oh, it was crazy. But it worked for me. It worked really well for me. And another thing that I had a moment with was uh like understanding the type of writing I wanted to do, and then being able to like express that to my editor and be like, because she was so great at like nurturing me and being like just so supportive and wonderful. I loved working with her. But I had this moment where I was like, oh, she really wants me to be a really great writer, right? And give me a second. She's like, she kept giving me notes about like my phrasing and the way that I was saying things and all of this. And I was sitting there one day because I was getting a little frustrated, right? I was like, why can't I do this way? And then I realized because that's not the kind of writer I want to be. This book is for teens, and I want them to feel like they're having these thoughts themselves, or they're having a conversation with their best friend and they don't talk like that. And so I had this really wonderful conversation with her, and I felt so nervous, right? Because I'm like, she's so great and you are clearly brand new. How are you going to tell her how she should give you notes, right? Like, it was this moment, but I was so proud of myself because I was able to do it. And thank goodness for her because she was so open to it. And she was like, oh, okay. And then all the notes moving forward made total sense for what I was trying to do. They were easy for me to follow. So I say this to say to anybody who's doing a creative project, like, you really have to figure out how you work and what type of author, actor, producer you want to be. Like, what's your ultimate goal? Because if you don't tell your team what your goal is, they can't help you. Like, like you're making two different movies, basically, or books. I used to teach film producing, and that was one of the things that I taught. I was like, even if you have the most amazing director of photography and the most amazing director, if they're not on the same page, you're making two different movies and it will not work. And I had that moment in writing, and I didn't even realize it until I was like in that frustrated mode of like, what is happening? Why am I so bad at this? And then I'm like, wait, you're not, you're just not communicating.
That's the power of a sounding board, is not that a sounding board doesn't just say to you, yes, you're doing it right, or no, do it this way. The process of
Right.
the back and forth helps you to actually refine or even define, like, what is it that I'm even doing? Like, you start to find your own words and sometimes defending what you're doing. And you didn't know why you were doing it a certain way. But then in the moment of having to decide, wait, am I going to change it the way they're recommending, or am I not going to change it? I'm going to do this other thing. You have to figure out why that is. And now, I mean, Jenna, this is not going to be your first book, or this might be
I
your,
hope not.
it's not going to be your last book. Like, you're going to keep writing. And so now what you have is like, you're developing your author point of view, your perspective, your philosophy really as an author, especially for this audience. And everything that you're doing in this book, you're going to carry forward into your author career. And that's just so powerful.
It's so cool. And I think it goes back to exactly what the book talks about as far as like finding there's a million ways to do everything. There just is. And to be able to have that internal conversation with yourself about what you really want out of life, and like get rid of all of the external. I always say I get opinion overload, and I think everybody else's opinion is more valid than mine. And so like through this book writing process, and hopefully through the story itself, I'd love to hear anybody's feedback on this, by the way. I try to teach like, oh, there's like finding your way and being okay with who you are is the only way to move forward. Because now, not only did I develop my own writing voice, but I've built a team. I can go back to you guys and be like, hey, we're going to do another one in the same style. Or I can be like, hey, I really want to up my writing game. Let's focus on phrasing, if that's what we want to do. But the open dialogue and the open conversation where it's not, you know what it is for me? It's like, it's this book isn't about me, which is really meta because it is. It's like, it's completely my like real life emotion stories, all of that kind of stuff. Right. I was talking to a friend who read it and they're like, how much of this is true? And I'm like, probably 90% of it actually happened. And some of it is just bonkers, right? But like being able to understand that the book isn't about me. The book is about what I want the audience to get. The book is about who's reading it, right? And so being able to remove your kind of like ego from the process, I think is key. And I really tried hard to do that, which is a very difficult thing considering it literally is my story. Oh my God. I'm happy I didn't go crazy writing about going crazy. Let's be honest. Full circle.
I am just so glad. I'm sorry that it took 15 years. And yet that period of like thinking about it and trying different options and maybe this and maybe that, and the years when you were speaking directly to, young adults in high school and all that inspiration, it all comes together, right? The
Yep,
timing always
absolutely.
somehow it ends up working out. And now you have this book, Aggressive Optimism, and it is powerful. I hope this book becomes what our kids read in high school. Like
Me too.
this is the philosophy that we really want our strong, resilient, go get them kids to see in another person, and to, like we talked about at the beginning, empathize with maybe someone they know that's going through something difficult. Like instead of distancing yourself, being willing to say, you know what, I want to know more about your journey. And if something crazy happens to me, just to use that word crazy that you were referring to earlier,
I'm trying to make it less taboo, y'all. I really am.
because it's so out of the ordinary, out of what you would expect. But when it does happen to you, how do you pull yourself through? Who do you rely on? How do you get through that process? I mean, reading Nif's journey can help us do both of those things, to empathize
100%.
with other people and to encourage even ourselves to get through something really difficult. So I'm just so grateful, Jenna, that you've written this book. I'm sorry it took you 15.
Aw.
It is so
It's
worth
okay. It happens when it's supposed to happen, and I'm so grateful for you and your team and Paper Raven Books. Oh my gosh, I'm just honored that you guys have taken this story and helped me make it a reality. Like it was a dream a year ago. That's it. Just a dream.
us.
A
Now
dream 15 years in the making, but still just a dream, right?
And now
And
here it is. It's launching.
no.
We're getting the book out into hands all over the nation, all over the world. And NIF is going to
Yes.
change lives. I'm so honored to be a part of your journey and NIF's
Ah,
journey. And there's so much goodness to come. So I want to encourage y'all. You're here, you're listening, you're excited about the possibilities of aggressive optimism. If that phrase kind
yes,
of catches your
please.
attention, grab a copy right now. Go to paperravenbooks.com/aggressive optimism, all one word, or click the link right next to this video. Take you over to Amazon, grab a copy of the ebook, load it on your Kindle, get it ready for the weekend. Grab any other version of the book you want, the physical version, the audio version. And we would just be honored for you to jump into Nif's life and
Yes,
learn about aggressive optimism. Again, tag anyone who you think would be interested in this kind of book and this kind of conversation as well. Jenna,
100%.
any last words for your readers who are going to be meeting NIF very soon?
Oh, oh my gosh. Be kind to Nip and yourselves. Everybody's going on a journey, and it's a beautiful journey, even when it looks really messy. You can get through it. And if you would like to share your thoughts, I would be so honored if you would follow me on Instagram at Jenna Edwards Official. I just really want to know what people think, you know. Um, and if you have any questions or you want any topics expanded on, I am happy to address them in a video or whatever. I just want to start the conversation. Like, I really think that these topics are important. I think the book itself is a really, I don't want to say fun because it's such a hard like journey, but honestly, I think it's a fun read as far as like, you know, Girl Interrupted meets Legally Blonde can be. And yeah, I'm just very curious to see what everybody thinks, and hopefully it helps.
So grab a copy, hit Jenna up
Yes.
on Instagram at Jenna Edwards Official, and let's keep this conversation going. It's an incredibly important conversation, and we want to be guiding our young people and ourselves well in how to talk about mental health in a different way, in that aggressively optimistic kind of way. So thank you so much, Jenna, for writing this book. Thank you for leading this conversation, and thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you. I just can't say thank you enough. And thank you, everybody, for listening. So grateful. It's
All
grateful.
right, y'all go jump into that book, meet
Yes.
Nif, discover aggressive optimism. We will see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.